This is the Art Beauty Podcast where we tell the real truth about the fake shit. I'm Amber, and today my fabulous co-host is Amanda McIntosh. She is the founder of Take My Face Off and the creator of the non-toxic and reusable midi. Welcome to the show, Amanda. So good to have you here.
So fantastic to be here and so fun to be thought of as a co-host. Thank you so much.
Well, hello. I'm not doing this alone today. I mentioned before, people at the top are like, what the heck is the midi? We are going to be talking about this later in the show. This is the incredible, I'm going to almost call it a beauty tool, but it's like the most wonderful washcloth you will ever need and or use again. So we will be talking about that more a little bit later, but I wanted to talk to you because we are now in April. Hallelujah. Every time I get to April, I say we've made it, because I'm in the, by the way, where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, so it doesn't really matter to you. I'm in New York City. So by the time I get to April, I'm like, we've made it. The winter is over. And of course, everybody's like, well, you know, we're going to get one day in April. I'm like, no. I don't care. Mentally, I can deal with a day here or there, but mentally, we have.
I went to school in Rochester. I completely understand.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
It was a dark time in my life, literally a dark time in my life.
That's the worst. I mean, when it starts getting lighter and lighter, it's like a different person. So here we are. Hallelujah, April. And for people who don't know, at the end of this month, we have Earth Day. But, you know, especially in the beauty community, so much focus recently has gone into sustainability, to, you know, companies that really are making sure that we are protecting our Mother Earth. And so I thought, why do we have to wait till the end of the month? Like, let's just dive in and get right to it. And you have created this company, Take My Face Off, that really is about sustainable and sustainability, correct?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I'm one of those people who cares about the planet, but the issue felt so overwhelming to me that I never really thought I could do anything about it except for various types of purchases. And I did not start this out as an environmental enterprise because, again, it had not occurred to me I could do anything.
Right.
I was really mad at washcloths. I was like, why are people spending so much money and time on their skin and then wiping things off with rough terry cloth? I mean, it seemed like insanity to me. And so I started it off as a search for something better, and then kind of started looking at the beauty industry more closely and realizing that this could be a replacement also for disposables. And then it turned into this crazy mission. And I got so, it was such an incredible feeling to be able to dive into something I cared about and to feel like I could actually do something that helps. And then diving into every aspect of, you know, packaging and distribution and everything, and like what's the environmental impact of all of this, that it turned it from a fun, cool thing into kind of a calling, you know?
Yeah.
And so I guess this is what I do now for the rest of my life, forever.
And now, I mean, now you are a legit entrepreneur. So congratulations. You know, you said something before, which I think so many people can relate with, which is, I want to do good for the planet, but man, it seems so overwhelming. I live in an apartment complex. There's a young girl, God bless her, in my building who wanted to start composting. I don't know if you've ever been to New York City. They do compost. In theory, it's a great idea, but we have these things called rats that make it very, very difficult to do, you know, in mass. It's tough. And so sometimes I think about, like, you know, and of course we recycle the paper, I recycle my cans. I don't really know if that is doing much of anything. I've heard sort of both ways, that it's not like, oh my God, I'm recycling and now this is going to get totally I see the landfills. So I'm not trying to kid myself, but it does feel sometimes like it's overwhelming. And what can people do? Do you have any advice for people who are probably feeling that way?
I do. And I also kind of have a way to think about the recycling, composting, trash issue. Here's what I was talking to some relatives recently who are kind of like, come on, this is ridiculous. And yes, there are tons of facts about landfills and what's recyclable and what's not. Our world has gone from this insane system where everything used to be made essentially of natural materials, right? And then we invented like plastics. And then we outsourced production to places where it was cheaper. So our world is
Right.
suddenly awash in all these things that our planet doesn't really have a way of dealing with. And so, kind of like as a society, we're trying to figure out how to go from a society where things were precious to now things are disposable. And we're kind of
Right.
working out the kinks. But if we're going to buy all this stuff, if we can train ourselves to get into these habits of recycling, sorting, and stuff, the people on the other end are actually working very hard to make it so that there is somewhere for that stuff to go. So it's like we're all kind of part of a big system. We're all training ourselves, the scientists, the people, whatever. But I was going to say more simply than thinking about your recycling or composting, there's one golden rule that is always true, has been true, will always be true, which is that the less you buy, the less bad impact you're having.
Right.
And so that means when you can pick something that is going to last years instead of months, if you can, do that. If you're going to pick something that's going to last days instead of minutes, do that. So, for example, a plastic spoon that you put in your lunchbox every single day, keep using that plastic spoon, is greener by far than using a disposable bamboo one every single day.
Correct. I'm so glad you're
Massive.
bringing that up because you hear about these like plastic purges that people are having. And sometimes it's like you have to go and think, hey, guess what? If you actually just use that plastic in your house,
Mhm.
um, because once you do that purge, you're just adding to the problem. I'm really happy that you're going to kind of get all your bamboo and glass in and you're going to kind of eliminate plastic for your life.
Yeah.
However, if you're just doing that to kind of do it and throwing away all that plastic, it's just creating more waste.
It really is. And if all the stuff from the beginning was glass and bamboo, well, that's great. But
Right.
getting rid of the plastic to replace it with something else, that's something else. Even if like, let's pretend it's some bamboo that actually came from a fabulous ethical bamboo source.
Right.
It still had to be manufactured, transported, packaged, sold. There's still so much waste and pollution that goes into that supply chain that if we just skip it,
Right.
it's much better. So whenever you can just reuse the same things, buy higher quality, keep it for a long time, that is always greener, no matter what material we're talking about, no matter anything. That is literally always like your golden rule of being green.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rent the Runway.
Yes. Oh my
Okay, well,
goodness.
and I'm
Absolutely.
only saying it because you said you like this shirt. So I obviously work and do a lot of stuff on camera. So I belong to Rent the Runway. And one of
Mm,
the things that I loved about their business model is that it is really helping me and I think a lot of other women deal with fast fashion. Right. So we are consuming less because you are renting items to use, you use them and
hmm.
then you send them back. Now, I'm not going to try to pretend that I can't imagine that dry cleaning operation that they have going on is
Yeah, but
great. But however, fashion, it's better than people who buy stuff. My personal shopping habit for fashion has gone down tremendously. I
that
mean,
is fantastic.
tremendously.
You're absolutely right. No. And I mean, everything we do has some kind of impact. And yes, dry cleaning is not the greatest, but dry cleaning a single item over and over again is vastly better than the process by which new things are completely created and then disposed of. And people have said the same thing to me. What if, well, we have to wash a product if it's reusable instead of throwing it away? The amount of soap, water, energy that goes into washing something is vastly lower than the energy required to create something. So again, it's complicated, but it's your golden rule. Anything you can do to help things not to help us not just like constantly create a new pile of things that has to be disposed of. And I absolutely love businesses like Rent the Runway. And I mean, nothing makes me happier in the world than seeing super creative, super fun, super style filled businesses that give people delight without just like relying on the influx of constant new.
That are also run by women. Sorry, had to say it.
Yeah, well, obviously, obviously.
Gotta give us props so we can get them. And you know what? To anybody who's saying the middies are like this big. So I mean, washing those really doesn't take a whole lot of time and or energy. Um, I was also going to say, you know what? I want to just before we kind of go into more of the beauty realm, you have to also do a little bit of homework when it comes to how things are marketing. So
Mm,
I work in another life. I used to work within marketing and had with printers, paper printers. And one of the most interesting things that I learned was that if you go into a store and you buy recycled printer paper, the carbon footprint is way worse than having bought just regular first run cut from the trees that were grown paper, because of the chemical process that it takes and the amount of energy that it takes to break down that paper, process it from the pulp, dissolve it, and then bleach it to get it back white. But you think, oh, I'm buying recycled paper, this is so much better for the, and it's not. So shame on you,
that's kind of one of the things
marketers.
where I completely agree. And it is absolutely shame on the marketers. There's a special place and where for the people who kind of sell us this stuff. However, there is a flip side, which is that if we don't create a market for recycled stuff, the people who process it will never have an incentive to get better at it. And my
Right.
hope is that if we keep finding ways to reuse all the things in the world, that they will develop better chemicals, better processes that are less harmful, and we'll get this thing going. Because you don't just, have a magic wand and say, poof, here's your no impact paper. I mean, obviously there are a lot of kinks to be worked out.
Right.
So I would hope that it's part of a long chain of like improvement that we're all doing with all these parts. But yeah, man.
And I want to believe that it is, because I do believe now that the consumer having such a powerful voice, and that there are so many people who really do care deeply about the environment, and about saving us. Because let's be real, Mother Nature ain't going nowhere. She will be around a lot longer than we will. She's just going to wipe us off the face of the earth with this, like, global warming isn't killing the planet, we're killing ourselves.
Yeah,
Then the planet
exactly.
the planet has been around for what is it, billions of years, so the planet's going to still be here long after we're gone, folks. So we're saving ourselves and everybody who's standing behind that. I'm great, but I do feel that, like,
That's
corporate
a great way to put it.
responsibility, they're listening to us more.
They are, but also, they're not all heartless automatons running all the
Right.
companies. Since I started in the beauty industry, which I haven't been in it that long, but I have been really impressed by the types of changing conversations I've seen. If
Yeah.
I go to conferences or whatever, and I see these people talking at the very beginning of this, I felt like there was kind of a lot of lip service. Well, we're investing in some recycled packaging, but
Right.
I'm seeing those people, I'm seeing those same people coming to different conferences, and I'm seeing their information level dramatically increase. They are getting smarter, they are caring more, they're starting to like really get how consumer goods companies are single-handedly kind of one of the worst people in the, like one of the worst types of companies in the world for pollution and stuff. And so they're getting really creative and really intelligent about what they're doing, and they are humans, and they are getting it, and they're caring. And I would also say a little bit of that is because there's an influx of more women and maybe some younger
Right.
people. So there's some really good changes happening. And these days when I see a company rolling out their greener initiative, 5 years ago it wasn't really greener. These days a lot of the things they're doing, well, that really will make an impact. It's really fantastic.
That's amazing. Is there any company that you feel like is really killing it right now, before we kind of get into your fabulous company that you're
Oh,
really impressed with? Didn't mean to put
well,
you on the spot, but, like, if there's anybody that you're like,
you
wow,
know I really enjoy looking at a company like Rothy's
okay,
because so they're doing a lot of things that you kind of have to do to be in business, which is for them to be making a product and make money. They're making it in China, which you can have some disagreement with that, but then they really are using recycled materials in really creative ways, and they really are making a superior product that works incredibly well. So I absolutely love that. Kind of like Rent the Runway, Rothy's is doing something that nobody had really done. They're doing it really well.
mm-hmm,
And they've got a lot of smart pieces in place so that they can actually make money. They can actually spread this message of, hey, it can be fabulous and it can be green at the same time. So
yeah.
I really admire them. Also, Bite toothpaste. I've been looking more closely at them lately, and I look at how they give us a new idea for a consumer good. Like this, it's a habit. You do it every night. It's really hard to change habits. So they're giving us something that we have to change a habit at a time of day when we're tired, but they're putting it in fun, gorgeous package, and they're selling the message and the information so well that you might actually stop, even though it's late at night and you're tired, and go like, okay, what is this and how am I going to use it, and change that habit, and then ultimately drip by drip, toothpaste tube by toothpaste tube, kind of have a big impact.
Oh, so wait, I'm sorry. What were they doing? I'm actually gonna just
Bite toothpaste
they are,
is this company I've been looking at lately where they have little toothpaste tablets that they
oh,
sell
yes,
in
of
glass
course.
bottles.
Yes. And the
And then like the
mouthwash
deodorant
too.
dispenser, the mouthwash, the tooth whitening gel, the deodorant, the gorgeous aluminum deodorant container. And that's fabulous.
And
Just fantastic.
everything is kind of meant to be reusable. I love that. So, I mean,
Hmm.
especially with beauty packaging, I see a lot of that now with like lipstick companies. So, like a lot of the
Yeah.
even luxury companies. So, Valentino now,
Hmm.
a refillable lipstick, and it's like, thank God. Like, why do I need to just toss this? Send
Hmm.
me the thing to put back in. So, I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about middies and take my face off. And so you said before that you started this because you hated washcloths, and then it kind of took on the benefit of having this sort of earth friendly uh base benefit to it. But so talk to me a little bit about that process. You hated washcloths and what?
Well, I had weird skin, not sensitive skin, but weird skin. And so I was always kind of trying to figure out, I'm a skincare fanatic. And
Okay.
one of my friends who's always like 5 steps ahead of me had told me about the oil cleansing method. And I said, I've got oily skin that
Mm,
would never work. She's like, no, trust me, it is amazing. And so I got started. And once I started doing oil cleansing, I absolutely loved it. But I had to use a lot of washcloths. I clean one morning and night. And I didn't have a massive stash of them. And I kept wanting to buy more, but I kept thinking, well, but I hate the ones I have, so I should find something better. And I couldn't find anything better. And then eventually, I'm also a performing musician. I was driving home super late from a concert one night, and I realized, oh my gosh, I haven't done laundry. I don't have any clean washcloths. And it just hit me, how hard can this be to find a fabric that's better than terry cloth? I mean, really, that cannot be rocket science. So I got started and had tiny children, and I would just park them in front of the cartoons and order a million fabrics and then cut them into squares and then just put soap and water and be like, okay, how does this one work? And in the end, I discovered a ton of fabrics that were so much better than terry cloth. But then some, I was like, okay, let's take it up a level. Let's see which ones makeup. Does it wash out or not? Can it take
yeah.
bleach? Can it take the dryer? What happens here? And I wound up with this super fancy, expensive Korean baby blanket plush that looks like a lot of other plushes, but this one is fancy. And it just, you couldn't kill it. You could not kill it. I mean, almost any makeup came out. It could take bleach. I literally have, I should grab them and keep them around, testers that are like 6 years old that my children now use to clean their faces. And they're still totally usable 6 years later of grime
Yeah.
and bleach and makeup. So I fell in love with this. And then so the next step was, well, okay, how do you improve on a washcloth? What's the competition? What is this? So I started looking around, and that's when I started looking at wipes and cotton balls. I was
Hmm.
not a wipes user because they make my skin break out and they make my eyes burn. And I did not realize how prevalent they were at that time. And looking into them, I was freaking out. I mean, they're the fastest growing cause of shoreline pollution. They're just, if, oh, okay,
Wait,
by the way, if a company tells you there's a green wipe, any company that tells you their wipe or their like disposable face mask or eye patch or anything is green, that's not possible. It's literally not possible.
why? Do you know why?
Yeah, a lot of reasons why. So first off, it's basically if it's a disposable, well, there's a massive supply chain that's supporting that. Just tons of pollution just inherent in making something. More importantly, it's almost impossible to make a wipe out of something that would actually break down. So when they say contains bamboo, it contains
Mm,
like that much bamboo. Or compostable, it's not really compostable. It's a kind of plastic that will break down in an industrial compost facility, not in your home compost pile. But more
right.
importantly, the packaging is this big plastic thing that's totally not recyclable. You're basically transporting a pile of fiber and liquid. The liquid could come from your tap. You don't need to spend all the gas and energy transporting that. And it needs massive amounts of preservatives because fiber that's damp is a perfect place for germs
For
to grow.
mold, right? And mold and
They're
yeah.
just so there's no really non-toxic wipe. There's no green wipe. I mean, even if it were made of like some kind of perfectly break downable fiber inside, still there's the package, and then there's just the whole supply chain to make it and bring it to you. So
I
they're
mean, I'm gonna
bad.
I'm gonna
Sorry.
jump in there really quickly because not to be gross, but I sit on the board of my apartment complex, and you don't know how many times we have to say, do not use the flushable wipes because they're not flushable.
They're
Right.
not.
So New York piping just can't support it. It just can't.
Absolutely
And
not.
and people are like, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
these
okay.
horrible tales of fatbergs that build up in sewers. It's
Oh,
really it's revolting, and it's primarily wipes.
yeah.
And there's no federal requirement for wipes companies to actually list what's in those. So
Right.
they can pretty much say whatever they want on the package. They can say green, they can say compostable. Doesn't have to be true.
Right.
So
Now,
anyway,
like,
that's all bad.
I mean, yeah, yeah. I don't have kids too. So like, I'm not like a baby wipe user. I mean, so for the mothers out there, God bless you, whatever it takes for you to get your child.
Oh,
I
yeah. I'm
but I think,
totally into the like things have to work for your life. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say I used a ton of wipes when my kids were babies. And I would
yeah,
never tell a person who's just trying to get through a part of life not to use something that makes their life a lot easier. But I'm talking about people who are like late at night removing their makeup.
with
It's
like eight
not
of
any
those
harder
things.
for us. Yeah, it's not
No,
any harder for us to grab something reusable than it is for us to grab a wipe. But in that situation, it's totally you can change that.
I've never found a wipe that works, to be honest.
Well,
So
think about it. They're basically, it's like your soap is there. You're putting soap on your face and you're not rinsing it off.
right,
Wipes are best case scenario made to kind of break down some makeup. They're not really made to wipe it off. There's also tons of buffers in there that make it feel softer, which also makes it harder for it to pull the makeup from your skin. So it's almost impossible for them to make a wipe that is the cleanser part and the rinsing and removing part because it's just what they're making it from. It's not
it's not
feasible.
good. If anybody's listening right now and you're not watching, you didn't get to just see Amanda remove her ear pods. That is why the audio might have changed. I don't want people to be like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" It's fine. You
I
still
really
sound great,
apologize.
and I adore you. Are you kidding? Everything technologically for me this week is breaking down. My internet keeps going out. I'm like, "What's going on?"
They
But
told me Mercury's out of retrograde, but I don't believe them. Something is like just wrong this week. It's
something
terrible.
is going on this week. I know
It
it's
really
been
is.
really, really weird. Um, okay, but one last thing before we kind of, again, I keep saying this, dig in. I'm going to admit, hands raised right here, I am a cotton pad user forever to remove my eye makeup at night. And when I went on your site and did a little research, I had no idea how bad cotton pads were and how
Well,
dangerous.
you can't be blamed because basically the industry hasn't given us an alternative, and that's all they give us. And why would it ever occur to you that they're terrible since that's just like the staple? That's what we use. So hardly your fault. And I was shocked. I just assumed that any kind of natural fiber had to be better than anything else. And then I started looking around because I noticed that my product worked vastly better than cotton balls. And so I'm a geek and I had to like look into why, what's up with the fibers, how do they function? I looked at things in microscopes, you name it. And as I was looking closer at cotton, I was really depressed to find out that, I mean, estimates vary, but about a quarter of the world's entire use of pesticides goes to cotton production. And the pesticides they use on cotton are the nastiest, the worst, the longest lasting, the most stubborn. Like it stays when it rinses off and winds up in the water supply. It stays that nasty chemical. It doesn't break down. It harms the people who pick it. It even stays in the cotton itself. So if you're like
Yikes.
buying a pair of jeans and then you wash it, at least you're getting it away from the jeans before you wear it. But when you have a cotton ball and you're putting it on your eye, you can't wash the pesticides off first. So not only is it bad for the environment, there's a lot of reasons that cotton production is just not cool. It's also not so great for you. And it's not that
Right.
we shouldn't like use cotton. It's a fabulous fiber that's useful for so many things, but maybe we shouldn't be producing such cheap cotton for disposables. Maybe that use should be diverted to something else.
I mean, which is so, so brilliant. And now enter the MIDI, which you have become like super famous for. It's in every magazine. All the celebs are using it. You were talking about it before. You were like, okay, I know I don't want a washcloth. You found this super plush, lush, fabulous Korean baby blanket fiber that you were like, it holds up to bleach. It holds up to makeup removal. But what made it go from that to the now famous MIDI?
Well, so I have this fabric that but here's the embarrassing part. If I put it on my skin with cleanser and I moved my hand would move and the fabric would kind of like stay there. I had to kind of pinch it between fingers to keep it moving. So then I started thinking, well, maybe it needs to be a mitt, but mitts are super ugly. And so I was working on this forever and I finally came up with this idea of having a droplet shape.
that would have and we're actually patent pending, a pointy tip that you could use for the lash line, because this fabric is magical at grabbing grime, and then it could really get in there. And then a rounded part that it didn't matter how big your hand was, because some of my
Right.
testers had massive hands, some of them had tiny hands. With this droplet shape, you can put like 3 fingers in, you can put
Right.
2 fingers in, 4 fingers, depending on the size of your hand. And so I'm not worried about size. It doesn't rip. It stays together longer. And then this pointy tip, instead of having like a loop where you hang it up to dry, you just hang it up by this tip, which never breaks off and also is useful. So I'm kind of in love with all the
Yeah.
different useful parts. And then I had all these clothing factories that I was trying to work with. And they just kept telling me, you're never going to be able to make that for a reasonable amount of money. This fabric is too slippery. It's too hard to sew.
Mm.
You're going to have to produce, 10 to get 5 usable ones. That'll just, and so then I came up with a new way of like making patterns. Then I came up with a way I bought, I'm very determined. I bought my own industrial sewing machine and learned how to use it and adjust it. And there's a special way, and we do this. And then I got mad at the cutting factory because they kept giving me bad batches. And so then I invented a new way to cut it. So I'm super, super invested in this entire process of how we make it. And every step along the way, somebody made me mad. And they
Yeah.
told me I couldn't, or they told me it would cost too much. And so I was like, well, I'm going to show you. And then as I got really into it and learned how, I found opportunities for making it greener by reducing our error rate, reducing the amount of fabric we needed, reducing, taking all, like my cutting process is hand powered and it's safer for the workers. So all these things I did, I was like, there's just so much room for opportunity in these little ways to make it better for the workers, to make it safer, to make it cost less. And so I kind of love this whole process. And I'm really into like every little thing about the midi. I've done, my big old deep dive into why would I pick this package? Why would I sell it here? Why would I do this? And it's all for very specific reasons, but it's because I just want to deliver. Like, I want to know that on my end, I'm doing everything I can to make it as green as possible so that that person I sell it to doesn't have to think, just like, hey, this is the best, greenest, most delightful thing I could give you, but you don't have to think about that. Just use it, enjoy what it does for your skin and your routine.
Now, I found about this from one of my best girlfriends who is absolutely obsessed with these. And full disclosure, I haven't tried it yet. There's one on the way here. I'm dying to try it. Can you tell us, is there a right and wrong way to use these? Like, are you supposed to use it with face wash, with eye makeup remover?
That's a good question. So anything that you would have used a washcloth for, or a
Okay.
cotton ball, well, or a wipe, kind of, you can use a midi for it instead. So there's no really wrong way. I'm not a big fan of all those products that say microfiber cloth, just add water and rub. I think that's terrible for skin. So I
Right.
will say that I know some people who use midis that way and they say it's fantastic. Fine. You don't necessarily have my blessing, because I think we need cleansers, we need surfactants, we need things to buffer that process. We don't want to be yanking our skin around. However, some people use that way. My favorite is I will take a cleanser, I'll dampen a midi, I'll put the cleanser right on there,
Okay.
and then I will just massage it around my skin. Every night I use one of these right here. I've got a lot of sizes and colors, but everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Then I rinse this, and then I take that same surface and I wipe it and I turn it to the clean side. I
Hmm.
do another wipe, and then I go in here and do the eye makeup. And then I'm done. Other people use a smaller one just for eye makeup, that maybe they'll use each side for each eye. So they're
Right.
careful not to accidentally spread germs. It's great with eye makeup remover. My Micellar water is fabulous. And then toner. One of my favorite things about this fabric, one of the reasons I picked it, is because it actually, it distributes the liquid more evenly throughout the fabric. So instead of
Okay.
like cotton is not good at cleaning. Cotton is not good at distributing. It just takes your liquid and it hogs it. But
Hogs
if I
it.
put
It's like, okay, and if you're doing something expensive, it's like, okay, there goes a ton of money to literally down the drain.
exactly. So mine, it will take the liquid and it doesn't take as much of it, and then it spreads it around the fabric. So what happens is you're using less of the liquid and more of it's doing work. More of it is on your skin, which actually means less tugging, less rubbing, less abrasion. So then less on the liquid, more benefit on the skin side. And then the whole process also kind of winds up being faster, again, because more of the liquid's doing work. You don't have to do as many passes. So it's a much
Right.
less abrasive, much less tugging method of washing your face.
I love that. And again, so you can use these. Then do you just rinse them out and hang them to dry? Or are you supposed to wash them?
It's whatever you want, you know, and one of the beauty editors in New York is kind of famous. To me, she's famous. I mean, she's famous to everybody, but to me, she's famous because she's super proud of only owning one. She owns a tiny little black one, and that is her morning skincare. That's her nighttime skincare. Then she washes it out with hand soap or shampoo, and then she hangs it up by that pointy detailer tip to dry on a little hook. And because on purpose, this is thin. I made it thin so that it would dry out faster.
Right.
And then by nighttime, it's ready for her to use again. But I mean, I have a million and I just toss them in the laundry and I stick them in with whatever and it doesn't matter because, you know, I'm in a house with kids. And so it's just easier for us to have a lot of them.
Sure, absolutely. And I bet they're great for like anything.
They're actually, I hear they're like great for, this is crazy, motorcycles,
Oh,
spokes, pet ears, plant leaf cleaning, anything where you wanted something small, delicate, maneuverable. It's fantastic.
plant leaf cleaning. I am not a mother, but I'm a plant mama. And you know, they get their bath like once every couple of weeks. My husband's like, what do you think? And you know what? I'm a jerk. I use a paper towel.
Well,
Not
again,
anymore. I'm really
nobody who
trying.
uses
I'm trying. Well, listen, I'm telling people out there, it's okay. I'm aware of this. I've really tried to cut down on my paper towel usage. I bought a lot of hand towels that we use here and kind of put through the wash. But yeah, the plants, they
But of course,
get
you're not a jerk. Nobody's a jerk for just using the things that like stores tell them they're supposed to buy. It's kind of a bummer that we all have to take the initiative and say, hey, consumer
yeah.
goods companies, these things are not cool. I mean, I'm glad we are, but nobody who's ever thinking about that should ever guilt themselves because I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do in life. You can't think about every single purchase that hard. You don't have
No, are
time.
you kidding me though? Like Spike, Baby Spike, and Big Spike, those are my three plants, are gonna love a midi. Like, how much more would you like that, guys? Yes, I talked to them. They would like it. They're I can see.
Uh,
They all just perked up a little bit because who wants a rough paper towel wiping your leaves off? Nobody.
oh, that's
That's great. But yeah, other uses for it. And I bet getting like into like for crazy people, like if you're have something that you need to get your like finger into like a corner of something to
mhm,
dust or
mhm. Makeup artists love them for cleaning makeup brushes. So these
yeah.
fibers, the reason it's so great is because I'm a geek and I've looked at it under a microscope. Each one of the fibers is long and thin and consistent. When I compare it to like cheap plush, their fibers are like these crazy gnarled tree branches. Cotton
Okay.
even more so, like very irregular. The fibers of my fabric are more cylindrical, more consistent. So they're tiny, 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 and they grab the stuff, but then when you get it into the wash, they release because there aren't as many nooks and crevices of breakage. They release the stuff back into the laundry easily. So the tininess helps them get into every nook and cranny of a plant leaf or your face.
Right.
And then the smoothness makes them less abrasive and makes them more stain releasing in the wash. And also the fibers are less likely to break off, which then would cause the product to just break down with time, you know.
So, okay. So one of these, you can basically, if you're using this to remove your makeup for your skincare at night, one really could suffice. How long do they last? Do you know? You said you have had some forever.
They don't die until my dog chews on them.
Ah, got it.
I'm
Okay.
not kidding. I have had a couple of makeup artists who love to do special effects makeup, and they said that once they were using industrial solvents a lot on them, they started changing their color a bit. But practically everybody I've ever even, I want to start a MIDI recycling program because actually, so we're made of polyester because it lasts so long. But polyester is actually highly recyclable, kind of like those
Okay.
Rothe shoes I was telling you about. There's all sorts of great ways to do things with those types of fibers. And I was going to start a MIDI recycling program, except nobody ever seems to need to give them up. So I will
Got
get
it.
around to it eventually. I'm sure they will die. But I use the testers from 6 years ago. You know, it's kind of like think of having a really excellent wardrobe of fabulous socks that never wear up. It's nice to have some
That's
more, to have some
amazing.
variety, but you don't have to get rid of them.
I love that. I love that. And you have them in different sizes now too, correct?
I do, because people like different things. We've got one that kind of goes on the whole hand that's more for body, and they all
Right.
have that pointy tip. My favorite really is this one that kind of goes on 3 or 4 fingers. I find
Okay.
this to be the most convenient. And then a lot of people love the tiny ones. We've got
Yeah.
black, we've got white, they're littler, you know. And then
Yeah.
my super fun one is we did a collaboration with my favorite lip artist, Vlada Haggerty,
Which
the
is
one who does these
so
astonishing
cute.
lip portraits. So we
Yeah.
did this with her, and it's shaped like lips, and it goes on 2 fingers, but then we, as always, we have the pointy tip on the end so you can do touch-ups. But it's because lip stain is hard to get off and lip skin is delicate, so this winds up being much gentler and much quicker.
Oh, I absolutely love it. I want to thank you so much for being on to talk about this. What do you think is next for you? Do you have anything else coming up that you can share with us?
Um, I'm really excited by all these companies out there that are doing some really cool things with taking the water out of formulations. Like all those hand soaps
Mm-hmm.
that are tablets or things that are powders, kind of like by toothpaste is having the tablets of toothpaste instead of a tube. So I've been working on some fun things because I think that's just an amazing area in general. Like you could have a formula that stays fresher longer, that comes in a different super fun container, and that takes so much less energy to make and to transport. So it's a win-win for everybody. I'm working on that.
Have you heard of Opulus Beauty on that?
No,
Okay, Opulus
thank
Beauty is
you.
very interesting. He the creator, it is like a luxe beauty tool, but basically the skincare, it comes with a I'm going to call it a heating mixer, but the skincare, it has no water in it. So it's all like ceramide and actives. And then
Ooh,
he has a retinol, and it's like these little, they almost look like gumdrops,
okay.
and you put them in this machine and it heats and it blends them, which is very,
That's that.
very, I mean, you talk about like, it's like probably like the same thing as like having like a baby wipe warmer. I only know this because when I was like, I bought one for a friend once, and she was like, I'm sorry, I have to return this. And I was like, why? That seems so nice. She's like, because I don't want my baby's butt to get so used to a nice warm wipe that if I pull out a cold wipe, it's going to be screaming. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of that. Well, once I started using warm product on my face at night, I was like,
That's
oh,
it's
it's
freshly
gonna be hard
mixed.
to
It
go
would be so
back.
much more active.
It is. So it's more
Wow, that's
active.
neat.
I mean, it's not cheap, but it's a great way. It was actually created at, he's got this regimen so you can introduce retinol without any irritation. I'm going to try to get him on the show because the product
Ooh.
is brilliant.
I
But
love
yes,
people like
less
this. I
water.
love these types of, I mean, it's hard for the consumer to totally change, but I love it when somebody introduces something totally different and says, hey,
Yeah,
this is going to be better for so many reasons. That's just so exciting.
it is exciting. And now that you've made a good point, it's like you're not paying to transport all that water.
Hmm, hmm.
Amanda, this is so incredible. If people want to know more about you, if you want to know more about Take My Face Off, or if they're ready to go and get their very own MIDI, where should they go?
The easiest ways are to go to takemyfaceoff.com, or you can find us on Amazon.
Wonderful. And listen, I just want to say, if you have time, go look at the blog on Take My Face Off. There's a lot of great information there that, like, it blew my mind with cotton. You think cotton, the fabric of our lives. Well, maybe it shouldn't be.
Maybe only for the long-lasting items. Let
For
it be
the
the
long
fabric
lasting,
of your life, for the things that those excellent jeans, that
for
fabulous
denim.
t-shirt,
There you go. The fabric that covers your ass. Got it. Okay. But
Yes,
not is
thank you.
that's not wiping the day off. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Thank you so much for being on with us today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you. You're a delight.
Oh, you are a delight. Thank you. If you guys want me at home to pass on any questions to Amanda or her team, I'm always happy to do so. You can email me at hello@artbeautypodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and right here on YouTube at Art Beauty Podcast. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.